Hello and welcome to episode 28 of the Spotlight Games podcast. My name is Patrick Schweigert, and folks, we're making history together. You and me, we're making history. I think I can definitively say, I can confidently say that for the first time on any podcast ever in the history of the podcasting art form and medium, we are joined by a member of the undead. For those of you who might not have listened last week, I regret to inform you that my co-host Kamen brutally murdered, allegedly, by Evan Brando, who co-hosted with me last week. Well, folks, I am joined today by Kamen returning as co-host. And Undead Kamen, are you willing to set the record straight today on what exactly happened between you and Malibu's most wanted, Evan Brando?
Okay, so let me tell you. Evan Brando, he tried to kill me.
Okay, so he was unsuccessful.
He couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
I've been on the lam. I've been in hiding because Evan Brando was unsuccessful, but I didn't want to give him another opportunity.
I understand.
However, I'm back. I'm ready. Evan Brando, I know you're listening out there. Come out of hiding, baby. It's fine. I'm gonna chop you down to size, big boy.
Ooh.
And you know what I gotta say? I gotta say. Okay.
Please say.
That was a fantastic episode last week, and I really enjoyed it.
Hey, thanks.
You guys did a fantastic job. Thank you for running the show without me. Evan, you're unforgiven. And you still better watch out. But you did a fantastic job. Real proud of you, buddy.
Hey, great job, Evan.
Hey, great job, Evan.
Look at us. The family's back together. We live to podcast another day. Because, Kamen, this is the Spotlight Games podcast where each and every week we're going to talk about the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get the podcast by subscribing on our YouTube channel or by subscribing in your favorite podcast app. And hey, while you're there, we'd love it if you rated it, reviewed the podcast, told a friend about it. If you have a friend that likes video games, text them. Hey, Jim, I was thinking about you today because I was listening to this podcast that I've been listening to for a while. Really fun, hosted by a human and an undead. And I thought of you when listening to it. Try that out. See, spread the word of our good little show. If you want to be on the show, if Jim wants to be on the show, they can email mail@spotlightgames.net, or you can DM us on Twitter at SpotGamesPod or on Instagram at Spotlight Games Podcast. What about our sister show, Kamen? Tell our listeners what's going on in the world of Save Trash Cinema.
Well, Trash Crusaders out there, let me tell you, this week's episode of Save Trash Cinema is a mini-sode, our second mini-sode that we've ever done. And on this week, we cover the 2021 French art house body horror sexploitation gross out brainbuster that is known as Titane. And let me tell you guys, wow.
Yeah.
The movie is intense. It is fantastic, and it's streaming on Hulu. So if you haven't seen it, come and check out our review. It's spoiler free, so you can hear what we think about the movie before you watch it, or watch it first, then come listen to the episode and see if you agree with us, because we have unsurmountable amounts of praise that we dump upon the head of Titane. And you know what? If you don't know what the hell we're talking about when I say this movie, we'll put it this way. You ever want to know what happens if you have sex with a car?
Oh, boy.
Guess what? You find out.
I feel like I learned what having sex with a car was like by playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which we'll talk about a little bit with what we're playing. But we have a great show for our listeners this week. Kingdom Hearts is back from the dead, just like our sweet boy Kamen. Max Payne 1 and 2 is coming back with some remakes. Another game from the grave. BugSnax is getting a big update we're going to talk about. But first, Kamen, we missed you last week. You weren't here. I want to hear what you've been playing in the last week or so in the time that we were not together.
Well, in the time that I've been missing, I've been holed up for the last week in a Motel 6 in New Mexico. I can't tell you where in New Mexico. This is secret. This is my secret hiding place. And if Evan Brando were to find this out, if I go on the lam again,
Sure.
He could find me. During my absence, though, while holed up in said Motel 6, I became Elden Lord and finally fucking beat Elden Ring 75 hours.
Look at that. You know what? Round of applause. If you're driving your car, pull over, give our Kamen a round of applause. I guess you might be able to applaud while driving. Just be careful.
Yeah,
be careful.
Knees with the wheel.
Ooh, I love using my knees with the wheel.
I do too. I knew this guy in high school whose dad would drive around with using just his knees while playing the harmonica.
Wow. Bob Dylan, that was.
Very much so.
Yeah, that was Bob Dylan.
Elden Ring. I know you guys are sick and tired of hearing me talk about the fact that I'm still fucking playing Elden Ring. Good news. I still am, but I beat it.
Tell us about it.
75 hours in, finally beat the final boss. I picked up a really good weapon and decided to kind of shift my build around using this weapon and using this incantation called Swarm of Flies, if you know, you know, and build myself a bleed build. And pretty much was just running house on every boss post Fire Giant. Fire Giant, and obviously no spoilers. If you know, you know. Very
YK.
Yes. Very difficult boss. But I started working this bleed build, and I got like a really good Ash summon, and just started running, and was like, I finally feel like I'm doing the game correctly. I'm playing the game correctly. And then I came up against the final boss. Obviously, no spoilers. The final boss is immune to every sort of affliction that you can cause.
Is it a spoiler to say what the name of the final boss is?
I mean, you kind of know. I mean, I think at this point, like if you haven't gotten there yet, you know what you're gonna get.
And like I've heard a name, but I just don't know if this name is the final boss name.
I mean, you can say it.
Radon? Is this Radon?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, that is General
Is this a woman?
Radon, the Scar Scourge. No. Well, yes and no. It's very hard to explain.
Sure. Keep going.
The fuck the story is. Look, I'm 75 hours in. I've beat the final boss. When you beat the final boss, you're given another side of grace that you can then leave before you make the decision on what ending you want your game to be. Once you choose that ending, you are then still able to go and complete other activities in the world that you haven't completed before.
Now, is this like a Mass Effect choose your own ending kind of situation?
You have to do certain things. So yes.
Okay.
Specifically, I would say Mass Effect 2.
Okay, so we're
ending.
They didn't give you.
3. Yes,
they didn't let you choose between.
Choose a door. Yeah,
they didn't let you choose between the colors green, red, and blue.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is a Mass Effect 2 style ending where you have to complete certain objectives throughout the game for this to actually work. For you to get certain ones, and the sad fact is, like most, probably outside of Sekiro, I don't know. I really don't know much about Sekiro, but every Souls game from FromSoft always ends horribly. Like there's no good anything. Everything is depressing. All of your NPCs live miserable lives if they live at all.
Sure.
So maybe the good is this world is horrible and they're all dead. For me to be able to even try to explain the story, I mean, I guess at this point I probably could give like a very, very top-down look on it and be like, this is all I know because I really don't know much.
Got it.
I can tell you the very skeleton of it. You know what? I'm gonna say it. This is my game of the year so far.
Let's go.
Doesn't mean that I think the game's perfect. It doesn't mean that I think the game is a masterpiece. I just think that coming off the heels of Horizon going into Elden Ring, I really felt like Elden Ring had big shoes to fill because Horizon's so good.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something about Elden Ring. It just feels like one of those games that you just comes once in a decade, once every 5 years.
Sure.
There's just one of those games. It's just so different from everything else. And this is what this game is. When I went up against the final boss, though, and this kind of goes into that, is that I was getting my ass kicked over and over and over and over and over again because my build didn't work. So what I ended up doing is I just turned around and was like, all right, I'm not touching this boss for a few hours. I'm going to go do other things. I went and picked up items that could help me fight the boss. I went and killed other bosses that I hadn't fought yet to try to level up some more, to get some more health or some more FP and, whatnot. Then I come back and do the fight and I end up winning. That is the thesis of Elden Ring.
Okay.
And why I think that the game is so interesting is that at any point, you can stop what you're doing. You can go all the way to the other side of the map, do something else for a few hours, come back and feel comfortable and confident that you can now take on that boss.
Okay.
And I don't know if I've ever had a game that's been like that, because it's not like a JRPG or like playing Pokemon or something of that nature where you're playing and it's like, okay, well, I'm not high enough level. I need to go grind for 3 hours.
Sure.
So you go off in the tall grass or you go into a dungeon with high level enemies and you grind for multiple hours. And you're like, okay, I'm strong enough. I can come back. Like, this game is very much like you need the right tools. You need the right build. You need to know how to do it.
You need the right attitude.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I've had a bad attitude most of this game. There's been parts in this game where I've been like, I want to break my controller. Like, sure. I'm so frustrated and so over this shit. And that being said, I still haven't even fought Melania.
That's the name I was thinking of.
Another one that hardest boss in the game. Still haven't fought her because I'm like, I was able to take out the final boss, but I don't know if I'm able to take out her. Okay. But there's been moments where, and this could be another one. And that's why I'm excited, because like I've beat the game, I've beat the story. There's still
sounds like there's a lot left to do.
30 hours of exploring left I could do. There's a whole area of the map I still haven't even stepped foot into.
Wow. And
it's like, that's an incredible achievement and accomplishment.
Are you going to stick with it?
Is massive. For sake of this podcast, and for the sake of the fact that I'm actually about to start my job up, and be back in the workforce again, I will probably roll both. I'll probably continue to do some Elden Ring here and there, probably to the end of the week at least. I'll continue to play through Elden Ring, but it is time. I think during the course of my playthrough of Elden Ring, you've beat like 8 games. And so I feel like I'm doing a disservice to our audience. So I do think like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, that's one that my fiance and I really are excited to get into. So that's probably going to be the next up on the docket. Obviously Kirby is another one. I really want to hear your opinion on Skywalker Saga, because I love Lego games, and that's another one that I'm like, that sounds like it would be fun. But then there's other games like I don't know. I've got this itch where I keep seeing people like coming back around talking about the Aubergine, and I'm like, maybe it's time I give that a shot. Also, Death's Door is currently on sale on PSN right now for really cheap. And I'm like, maybe I'll jump into Death's Door. Maybe I'm a Souls guy now.
How much do you remember off the top of your head how much that game is?
It was like $10, I think.
Everyone buy it. If you have a PlayStation, go buy that game. One of my favorite games of last year.
So that's that. I think there is definitely a world in which there's a timeline in which I play Elden Ring for another 75 hours.
Okay.
Where I go for a platinum run. And if I could beat Melania, I think I could platinum this game. There's 3 main endings you have to get the platinum.
Okay.
And
the red ending, the blue ending, and the green ending.
There's kind of a cheap way you can do it where you like save on a hard drive, reboot your save from a hard drive. That's a lot of work. I don't want to do that.
Right.
So for me to do it now, I've heard that like New Game Plus 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. You pretty much can just kind of fuck off and not touch anything else, like anything additional to the main game, because there's really no point in doing that, because you've got all of your gear from before. There's no reason to do it.
Yeah.
So, it might be a lot easier to get the platinum than even that, but that would be contingent upon me beating the hardest boss in the game, which I'm not sure if I physically, mentally am capable enough to do. But I was able to beat the actual game, and that says something.
There you go. Congratulations. Look,
thank you, sir.
Part of me is just thrilled that I get at the very least 1 point for my 2022 predictions when I said that this was going to be the game that made you like these kinds of games. And to hear that it's your game of the year already so far is exciting.
So far, yeah. Definitely. It takes down Horizon. It's a really good game.
Are you prepared to give it an official rating out of 5 golden shovels?
I am. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5 golden shovels. Okay.
Golden shovels. Like I said, the big issues that I run into with Elden Ring is there are certain encounters that you come across in the game that are just not designed. They're designed for like artificial difficulty. So they put you in a room where there's like 7 enemies who can all stun lock you, and they just will tear your ass up. And then you go to fight a boss, like the big boss of that area, and then you can like 3-hit kill them. And so it just feels like there's design choices there that weren't thought through or fleshed out enough. They reuse assets in a weird way with like certain, like you'll fight enemies that then you get a boss fight and you have to fight like 3 of the same enemy as the boss. And it's just like, I would rather you just not had a boss fight at all instead of this be the boss fight, because this is just artificial difficulty. There's nothing original here, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
On top of that, the story is completely nonsensical.
Yeah.
I still have no idea what's going on in the game. And it's, it's one of those things where I think that those factors that get to play in, they just chip each one of them chips just enough away to bring it down from what I would say would be a 5 out of 5.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm excited. Whenever I finally take the plunge, I think what I want to do is start on like a Sunday and have you come over.
Okay.
We get some drinkies, we get some snackies, and you just like guide me through the first like 3 hours so that I can feel comfortable with what I'm doing. And then I feel like from that point on, I will be comfortable enough to play the game. But I got so overwhelmed at the beginning with no direction that I need someone to guide me, I think.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Especially like I could always jump into your game as well. But then I think depending on the experience you want to have at this point, if I were to take on, because I did before, I went and took on some bosses that like were earlier that I was like, I need to go get this talisman or this weapon or this piece of armor or whatever. So I would take on these enemies and I would just like 1-2 hit.
Yeah.
Like these are bosses that like, if I were to try to have taken them on when I was in that area, like I would have just been smushed.
Yeah.
Get some sweet shit music, get my teeth kicked in. And that's kind of wild to be like, I'm that much stronger.
Yeah.
And it really kind of breaks the game. But it's fun. But, I like to feel like a superhero. So going back as a superhero and just being like, I am the Elden Lord and I can literally like use my swarm of flies and not even touch you. Just let these dung eating the swarm of flies. So this whole thing about this swarm of flies, right? It's an incantation that you get from this area that's just like blood. Everything's covered in blood.
Okay.
And you pick it up off of a pile of shit. And the whole thing is that the flies have become like not cannibalistic. They're like carnivores now because they have feasted on blood shit for so long that they seek blood now. And so it's like the most overpowered incantation.
That's some dark shit right there.
And you're just like, here's my blood shit flies. Just go do damage. And then you just sit in a corner as they just eat through shit. You're just like, all right, this is perfect. This is Elden Ring, guys.
Sounds like I need that from the beginning of the game. Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit about, so I've been playing 2 games this last week. I finished Curse in the Forgotten Land, which, can I just say, what a delightful fucking game.
Sam.
I wouldn't say what a delightful fucking game. I wouldn't say it's my game of the year. I think I won't be surprised if it is some people's game of the year. But it's just such a delightful game. Like I think I ended up putting like 15 hours into it, and there's like a post game for this game. I was so shocked by that there's like but the climactic final sequence, I was like in tears laughing because it was so funny. Because I don't want to spoil it, especially because I know some of our listeners are playing, and I don't know where they are in it yet. But I took like 15 different screenshots at the end of the game because I was like, I cannot believe what is happening right now. It was so funny. But definitely
anything to do with the meme that's like Kirby Souls.
I haven't seen the meme, but I don't think it's the same thing.
Okay.
at least what I specifically was finding funny. But like, and yeah, the post game, a lot of fun. Like I ended up finishing that. It's basically just like you finish the game and then there's like a whole extra set of like 7 levels to do or whatever.
Nice.
And yeah, really, really, really lovely game. Next time I see you, definitely want to give you my copy so you can play it. But yeah, I completely blown away by how much I ended up really liking this game. It's not going to dethrone Horizon for me, but it is going to be in my short list as of today. But another game that I want to talk about that I've been playing a lot more of this week is Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
I'm very excited to hear your input on this.
I also am playing this on Switch. I made the decision that because I've played probably like 3 or 4 different Lego games in my video game lifetime. And I've never finished one of them because I always get just kind of like tired of it by the end. Not that it's bad. I'm just like, okay, I'm just kind of over it at this point. And so I was like, I want to get this on Switch because I think if I have it on Switch and I'm like playing at night when we're watching TV, I think it will have longer legs for me. And I think that is true. I think because here's the thing. So taking a step back, it is both at the same time, unlike any Lego game I've ever played, and the exact same thing as every Lego game I've ever played. Like the actual moment to moment gameplay feels different, but I think a lot of that just has to do with, even though this sounds really reductive, I think it might just be that it's a different camera angle. Like it's like over the shoulder now instead of like more kind of high above. Like,
ooh, that's interesting.
And so it's always like in certain scenarios, like there's like, I mean, there are definitely, because I don't mean for it to sound reductive. There are definitely a lot of new gameplay elements. There's like cover-based shooting and like actual like dueling and things like that. It's still, obviously this is still a game ultimately made for children. So like it's very, very easy, but it's the moment to moment gameplay. There is enough difference between the moment to moment gameplay that I finished the prequel trilogy so far. And I do think that I'm probably going to finish all 3 trilogies, and I think that I will also kind of dip into free play mode and try to. I don't think I'll 100% the game because there's so much content in it, but I do think that I will play a lot of this game because I'm enjoying it. Like it's definitely the most fun Lego game that I've played so far. I think I really enjoy something that Evan and I talked a little bit about. Like I'm really enjoying this. Like the Lego spin on Star Wars. Like they've done it before, obviously, but like this. Like as an example, a little bit before recording, I finished episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith, and I'm in the climactic battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar at the end of the game, and they have a lot of the lines recorded by these new voice actors. But like anytime when you're fighting Anakin as Obi-Wan, if you go idle for like 5 seconds, Anakin just starts like dancing and shaking his butt, like waiting for you to fight him. And there's just this like this
fantastic.
There's just this like kind of lightheartedness about the whole thing that I'm really enjoying. Like it's fun to hear the like Anakin's betrayal music, and you just see like these stormtroopers like dancing in the background and just like that kind of shit.
I would like. I think it might have been the very first game I ever platinumed was the Lego Batman game on PlayStation 3, and they had no voices, so all of the humor was pantomimed.
Yeah.
And I thought it was absolutely some of the funniest shit ever. Like they just nailed that. And then when they switched over to voices, I don't know, it's not that it's solely the experience for me. It just, I don't know, it just didn't hit the same.
Well, it took out that creativity that they had to have to tell the story, because they were like, how do we say, like if I'm using the Revenge of the Sith example, how do I have Anakin say, or Obi-Wan saying, "You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you." Like, how do you say that in Lego? And like, so they have to become creative with those types of lines. And I will say, I'm happy to report, Kamen, I've not done this myself, but there is a mode where you can turn off voice acting so that it's more like pantomime-y.
Nice.
So that it can have that kind of like heart, but at the same time, there honestly isn't, like, it's not overtly voice acted. It's not like there are entire scenes that are just like reduced to a line. So like it's definitely not like they're trying to, each episode is like an hour and a half of content. So definitely a lot less than the actual movie. And within that hour and a half of content, I would say between 5 and 10 minutes is cutscenes. And they're usually very short because again, it's made for kids and they want kids to just go around and break shit and get all the little Lego gold or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I feel like where I'm at now. So I finished, like I said, I finished the first trilogy, or the prequel trilogy rather. I feel like I've seen everything there is to see in this game other than the other stories of the movies. Like I will be surprised if they like mix up the gameplay at all. But I'm still having a good time. So like, this is what I would say. If you've ever played Lego games and you like them, you will like this game. If you like Star Wars and haven't played a Lego game, but you're you're interested in playing through each of the trilogies in like a very dialed down, like very simplified version that's still fun, I would say this game is for you. If you do not care about Star Wars at all, this game is not for you, in my opinion. Like I think it leans enough into the story of Star Wars that just the Lego gameplay wouldn't be enough for you to enjoy this game. I think you have to like Star Wars to like this game. Like in last week's episode, I was like, this might be a game Rose would like, but she's not really a Star Wars person. She doesn't hate Star Wars. She just doesn't like Star Wars. Now that I've played, I don't know, 10-ish hours, because I play slow, even though each of the episodes are probably like an hour and a half. I'm just slow at these kinds of games.
Sure.
I've probably played like 8 to 10 hours. Definitively, this is not a game Rose will like. And it's because she isn't like a Star Wars fan like I am. So yeah. I think you need that to like the game personally. Now, some people might disagree with that. And like maybe the gameplay would speak to some people enough that they could get through that. But like especially if you don't like Star Wars, definitely not a game for you. You probably weren't thinking this was a game for you, but definitely not a game for you if you're not into Star Wars at all. But I think you, Kamen, are going to adore this video game.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you've got me sold. I love the Lego games, and I can see that. I remember distinctly playing Lego Jurassic Park. And as much of a fan of Jurassic Park that I am, the game just didn't work for me.
Sure.
Nothing about the moment-to-moment gameplay. It was just really not much of a story there or engaging aspects to want to do more than just mainline the story, and then just be done with it. Because like, I don't really care about unlocking a security guard from the Lost World. And you're like, no one fucking cares about that. But like, if you put me into Star Wars and I can get Yaddle, or you put me into, Lego Marvels and I can get someone like Sentry and just fly around everywhere, just breaking everything. Like, that's fun to me because I enjoy the lore and the history. So yeah, I think that would work. Yeah.
There's one other thing that I want to mention with a bit, to my understanding. Again, like I've played a few Lego games, but I've actually never beaten one because as I said, I've always kind of fallen off. This game is like pretty much an open world video game. Like each of the worlds you go to, like there's various planets, there's various cities within the planets, like locations within the planets, so that when you are kind of done with that area in the story, when you go back to it, there's like so much to do within each of them. Like it feels way bigger than previous Lego games in the ones that I have played. Maybe they've done open world before and I just missed that specific game, but like the Harry Potter ones are very much like you just go like room to room, or like the original Star Wars ones. There's just like, it's levels based. This is very much like levels happen within the open world, but if you want to just go back and go wherever within this world, there's going to be, and like because it's a collectibles based video game, they do a really like a great design decision where when you're looking through the map and like, okay, I want to go to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, it'll say this is the amount of Kyber bricks, which in this game they don't have gold bricks anymore. It's Kyber bricks because it's a Star Wars thing. And like, this is the amount of like data cards there are. This is the amount of, so like it's very upfront with like, this is what you can do here, which is great. Like for a collectible driven game, if it didn't have that, I honestly, my opinion would be very different than it is because but it knows what it is, it owns what it is, and it nails what it is. And like, I was worried that with Switch it might not perform very well, it might not run very well. The only issue that I've had so far, I've had a couple like crashes One of them was like I kind of forced it to crash myself because I got stuck and like I couldn't get out of it. So I ended the game. And there's this other weird thing that's happening that I've seen before on other Switch games, but I've never seen it on any other system, where because I've only played this game, well, not only, I've primarily played in handheld mode. And sometimes with the cutscenes, there'll be like, if my hand is the screen, on the like bottom edge and the right edge, there's just this like white line that almost as if the picture, it's almost as if there's like a white background behind the video, and like it's just off by like 1 pixel. And so I'm like just seeing this like white outline. And I've seen it on Switch games before, but I've been seeing it a lot in this, to where like I would say like 60% of the cutscenes I've watched have had this like white line edge around just half of the screen. So it's like, it's obviously not on purpose.
Do you think that there's a chance it's because you're playing on the SWOLED?
Maybe.
That it's because the screen is larger, that it's not optimized for the larger screen?
Maybe. I would be shocked, only because like it's not like this SWOLED's new, right? Like it's been around for several months. So like I would assume that they would have optimized it for that, but it could be that. It could be.
Interesting.
But yeah, great game so far. I'm enjoying it. It's definitely not going to be in the game of the year conversation for me. It's just kind of dumb fun. So if you're looking for dumb fun, if you got, I also think like if I had bought this on PlayStation, which I considered doing, I probably would not even get anywhere close to finishing this game. This is a game like for me where I want to be doing something else while I play, because it's not that interesting. Like it's interesting, but it's not going to hold my attention if it's the only thing I'm doing. But yeah, that's the world of a meaty update from us both. A very meaty update.
Yeah.
We have a couple quick stories that we can jump to, and then we have a bigger one that we're going to end the show with. But let's start off first, Kamen, with an old set of games that are being remade, it sounds like, from the ground up in Max Payne 1 and 2. I'm pulling from Matt Kim at IGN. This was announced earlier this week that Remedy and Rockstar Games have announced they will be remaking Max Payne and Max Payne 2, the fall of Max Payne. In a surprise announcement, Remedy will work with Rockstar under a new publishing agreement to remake the first 2 Max Payne games for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. Remedy will handle development while Rockstar will finance the project, quote, which will be in line with a typical Remedy AAA game production, end quote. The Max Payne remake also will be developed by Remedy's Northlight game engine, the same engine used to develop Control and the upcoming Alan Wake 2. So like they are really remaking these games. This isn't just like a remaster. This isn't just like a port. This is a straight up, we are remaking from the ground up Max Payne 1 and 2, which honestly, I fucks with.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. I think this is fantastic. The big thing for me on this one is the inclusion of Rockstar Games. I know Rockstar was the one who developed Max Payne 3. So in the big thing here that we keep talking about is like, okay, Remedy is doing a lot right now.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just like
they're doing a lot right now.
They're currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if we got it in here, but yeah, currently they're working on Max Payne 1 and 2 remake, a sequel to Control, an Alan Wake sequel, and then if I'm not mistaken, there's a 4th undisclosed game that's part of the Control universe as well that they're doing something with, but that's very much just in the ether. It's exists, but what it is, we don't know.
If that's the same game I'm thinking of, if I'm not mistaken, it is like a multiplayer focused like games as a service game is what the rumor is.
Absolutely insane. So the inclusion of Rockstar here makes me think that there's a good chance, because Rockstar is massive. They are fucking huge. There's probably a good chance that Rockstar's loaning one of their studios, potentially Rockstar London or whichever random Rockstar studio out in the wild that might not be working on one of their main projects, specifically Grand Theft Auto 6. So that makes sense. Like them being included makes sense as to how they're continuing to be able to do this. Now, where this, like when timeline this is going to come out, part of me it's a complete remake, right? Now they don't have to do like a new story or anything, so at least you have that. But presumably you're going to have new voice actors, probably some mocap involved as well, because the original Max Payne was all told through like comic book style, like cutscenes were like comic book style, like panels. I would assume that they're probably going to do away with that if this is a true ground up remake. When will this come out?
Yeah, it's another
I don't know.
It's another in this long line of like we're announcing this from like step one. Although this might be further along than step one because they didn't announce that like they're hiring for it like the other ones that we've talked about recently have. But I'm willing to bet, to your point about Rockstar, because Rockstar Studio made Max Payne 3, which is a very different game compared to 1 and 2. It was like almost felt like if the Hitman games were like action focused as opposed to self focused, it was kind of like that. And so I would be willing to bet whatever studio that is, if they still exist, would probably be helping because they have a history of making Max Payne, unless they want to kind of like start over and like do something completely different. There was, I don't think it's in this story, but I was reading an interview with Sam Lake, who is the head honcho at Remedy. I don't know what his exact title is, but he's like founder and big daddy boss. And it sounds like they are going to be, it's not going to be like a beat for beat remake. It almost sounds like it's going to be kind of like Resident Evil 2, where like we're going to inject some new content. We're going to like rewrite some of the story is what it sounds like. Because that, I mean, those games came out on PS2. So like they were very much a product of that time where like,
that is true.
Voice acting, like it was very much a shooty game where they introduced like a mechanic of the time where it was like slow motion, where you would like dive and shoot in slow motion. And it was very much a game about that with like a story as like the second kind of background piece. But it sounds like they kind of want to do it where a story is in the forefront of this.
Yeah.
And in a completely new engine, obviously. I mean, they wouldn't be reusing the PS2 engine, but yeah, I'm excited. I remember playing Max Payne 1 and 2 a little later than like way later than they came out because I never had a PlayStation growing up, but I think they ended up being released on Xbox, the original Xbox, I think. But I'm excited.
I think it's exciting. This is exciting. I think this is I'm not like huge on bringing old games back from the dead, like at least like the whole like remastering, constantly remastering everything. But there's been enough time, I think, between the original Max Payne,
I agree,
and this one. I think this is cool. I think this is cool, and I think it'll give people who never played it, give them a chance to. It's a fun game.
Yeah.
I also think too, on the other hand, it'll be a nice time capsule especially if they don't update a lot of it. Like it'll be a really cool time capsule to be like, this is the kind of games that you saw all the time. Like these crazy, like, I'm a detective who kills every single person.
Yeah.
I mean,
across. It very much was like a noir based, like, which is cool. Like you don't really see that a lot in video games. But yeah, I'm excited. Man, there was one other thing that I was going to say and it's just completely gone.
Someone bring back Condemned Origins.
Hey, I would play that. Oh, I remember. Yeah. With the amount of video games that we get today is so high that I just plain old remasters, like, hey, this was on last gen, let's bring it to the new gen, but with better graphics. I'm like over that. Yeah, I am here for completely new, like rebuilt. Like if the rumors are true that they're rebuilding The Last of Us from the ground up so that it feels like Last of Us 2, I'll play that. If it was just porting the PS3 version again to PS5, like probably wouldn't play that.
Yeah, like playing Skyrim on 18 different consoles.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you rebuild Skyrim again, then I will play it, even though, I did play it a little bit last year. But times they are a changing. Speaking of changing, Kamen, we have a game. This is a game that actually I want to kind of lean on you for because I've only played the original for like literally 20 minutes and I've always wanted to go back. But BugSnax is getting a big old overhaul, big thing. So we have this story from Michael McWhorter at Polygon. Kamen, if you would tell us all about it.
So this, like I said, comes from Michael McWhorter at Polygon, a major free content update for BugSnax. The charming puzzle adventure game set on an island filled with bugs made of food is coming to the game on April 28th. Developer Young Horses announced Tuesday. Called The Isle of BigSnax, the add-on for the original BugSnax will send players to a new island teeming with new food bugs things to catch. BugSnax and its free update are also coming to new platforms. This is fucking massive. Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. The game is also coming to Steam. BugSnax was an exclusive to the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Epic Game Store when it launched back in 2020. The new version of BugSnax will cost $24.99 at launch, thanks to a 20% discount. Game Pass subscribers will get day one access on Xbox platforms, Windows PC, and cloud. Nice. So first and foremost, BugSnax is a shit ton of fun.
Yeah.
It is very cute. It's very funny. The humor has so much heart. Tells like a really introspective story. Ultimately is just a really good game.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There are elements of like Pokemon Snap where like it's not necessarily you're just going through these maps and taking pictures of them, but like it kind of in ways feels like that, right?
So yeah, so you do have elements where you are taking photos of BugSnax doing BugSnax things. You are also catching BugSnax and feeding those to residents on the island. There's puzzles to solve where you have to use BugSnax in certain manners for them to open up new pathways or to help advance you in the world. It's very inventive. It's a very low stakes game in terms of like, you can't fuck up. There's, if you quote unquote die, it just kind of transports you back to the beginning of whatever map you're on at the time or whatever part of the island. You just go back and continue. It's not difficult either. But it's the whole thing about BugSnax is it looks kitschy on the top. However, there's so much heart behind each character and their interactions. Things from depression and anxiety to body dysmorphia. They deal with a lot of really heavy topics that aren't really covered a lot. And doing it in a manner in which it's cute and it's fun, but you're also being able to like pull in some of these deeper, darker content. It works. It works really well.
Yeah.
The big thing for me though is that last little bit there. Well, also the fact that it's coming to Nintendo Switch and Xbox.
Yeah,
it's big because now everyone, if you don't have a PlayStation, you can enjoy the game. When it originally launched, if you had PlayStation 5, you could have got it for free through PlayStation Plus for PlayStation 5. But yeah, But here's the kicker: day one access on Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost seems like Xbox or Microsoft is trying to go in and like all of these games that were PlayStation exclusives, they're like slinking in there and being like, oh, now it's coming to us. Well, let's give our people day one access through our subscription service to try to like snipe. And I think it's a clever move.
It's such a clever move. Yeah.
Also, once again, has to be an expensive move. So
yeah, oh, for sure. From the little bit, so yeah, this, like you said, since this came out like day one on PS5, it was one of those things where like there were just a few different things that came out then, and I was lucky enough to get a PS5 on day one. So it's like I jumped in, but like I wanted to play Spider-Man Miles Morales. I wanted to play like the new Assassin's Creed, like these kind of bigger games that I just kind of BugSnax was just always put on the back burner. So this is definitely one that now that we're getting this new content, I definitely want to jump in here soon whenever this comes out, which is, in only 2 weeks. This is going to be coming out into this month. So yeah, I'm excited. This is there are a few people that I know that listen to this show that from the little bit that I played, I think would enjoy this game very much. I'm looking at the Bergmark Folds household specifically. Hi, Katie. Hi, Elliot. Okay. Kamen, we got another big one. We got another big story, which is this. So this is going to be a two-parter. First and foremost, Kingdom Hearts 4 has been revealed. We're going to talk about that. But then what I also want to talk about from the Kingdom Hearts 4 announcement is there was a leak that happened last year, came in September, from NVIDIA GeForce Now, which is like this PC platform client thing. And someone essentially back in September supposedly opened up the guts of GeForce and was like, hey, I've pulled a database of all the video games that are supposedly on PC and coming to PC, and a lot of them hadn't come out yet. And at the time, people were like, I don't know, this sounds pretty fishy. But since then, there have been a lot of games that have proven to be true on this leak, that now there's kind of a whole different viewpoint about this leak where like, are we going to get a Final Fantasy IX remake? Are we going to get a Resident Evil 4 remakes? Like these things. So we're going to jump into that as well. But first, I want to just talk about Kingdom Hearts. So Kingdom Hearts 4 has officially been announced. Square Enix announced the development is underway on the sequel to Kingdom Hearts 3, the next entry in the long-running Disney RPG series. The news came as part of a 20th anniversary celebration event and included the release of the very first trailer, which you can watch below, which I did not pull for our video listeners. Kingdom Hearts 4 kicks off a new storyline for the franchise, the Lost Master arc, Sora returns, though, as you'll see in the trailer and screenshots, he's sporting a new look. The Kingdom Hearts 4 portion of the trailer, blah, blah, blah. The trailer showcases some brief glimpses, of gameplay as Sora squares off against a giant shadow monster in the middle of a city street. This new location is Quadratomb, which Square Enix describes as a, quote, large expansive city set in a gorgeous, realistic world, unlike anything ever seen before, quote, end quote, in Kingdom Hearts. No further details, like who knows when this game is coming, but...
So... They haven't said it, or at least from what I can tell, they haven't said anything about it. The game looks like it's running an Unreal Engine 5.
I think since then, I do believe that they have said that they are building an Unreal Engine 5, yeah.
Which, once again, there still has not been a singular game released in Unreal Engine 5, which leads me to believe this game is probably coming out, I would say, at the earliest, Christmas 2023.
At the earliest. That is even that is in a world in which they have actually been secretly working on this for a long time.
Okay, so here's the one catch that I don't think we really talk much about. And this is where people are like, I think we should temper our expectations on the longevity between Kingdom Hearts 3 and 4. This would be. Normally they're releasing Kingdom Hearts games one after another. It wasn't until the break between Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3, they dumped a ton of games on DS and weird spin-offs and random shit, but there wasn't an actual Kingdom Hearts 3 for years.
Long time.
People, and I think this is where people are coming in being like, oh, well, it's going to be forever before we get it. Like, no. I think we need to take a step back here because the actual development cycle of these games is a lot smaller. It's just the development cycle between 2 and 3 was a significantly large gap.
Sure.
To the point that people were like, we'll never get a Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
I do think that this will be coming a lot sooner than the gap between 2 and 3. The one between 3 and 4, I think, will be considerably shorter. But I do want to also say, never played a Kingdom Hearts game. Don't give a fuck about Kingdom Hearts. It will, because I don't know if we've ever announced the audience about this.
We've briefly kind of teased it, but we've never really said.
Should we say it?
Sure, go ahead.
Let's do this. So back several months ago, Patrick and I decided I wanted to torture Patrick, and I came up with this idea where we suffer through video games for each other. Patrick would be playing was it Regis Sentinels Regis Aegis
13 Sentinels Aegis Rim or something like that. I don't even know what it's called.
And so that was Patrick's game. That's what Patrick's gonna have to play soon. And for me, I will be playing Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3, including whatever the fuck else comes inside of that
1.8 chapter prologue plus
dream sequence cum shot to the square root of pi.
Yeah, exactly.
.8910 replicant. Yeah. It's like, fuck these names. These games have stupid as fuck. Look, here's my problem with Kingdom Hearts. I'm gonna get on a soapbox for a second. Here's my problem with Kingdom Hearts, okay? Stop naming your game such stupid fucking titles. Like 1, 2, 3. And if you want to make other games, call it like Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. That's fine. But once you start throwing shit in like Kingdom Hearts 2 Prologue 1.8 plus, what the fuck does that mean? What does it mean, Patrick? What does it mean? And why should I play this game? Because that sounds like nonsense. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox now.
I'm trying to find I saw this thing on Twitter that but I'm having trouble finding it now. There was a statement that Nomura, who is going to be like the Tetsuya Nomura, who bit long history in Final Fantasy. He's the one who originally made Kingdom Hearts. He's kind of been leading the charge of Kingdom Hearts throughout its journey. And he said something like, I was going to do, after Kingdom Hearts 3, I was either going to do Kingdom Hearts 4 or this other thing. I can't remember what the other thing was. But then he said, I decided to do Kingdom Hearts 4 because the fans were worried about Sora. And I was like, were the fans worried about Sora, Tetsuya Nomura? Or do you just want to do more Kingdom Hearts, because I think you can just say you want to do more Kingdom Hearts.
Not only are the fans worried about Sora, but they're also worried about the 2 additional mobile games that'll be coming out that don't follow Sora.
Okay, so here's the thing. Let me say this.
What the fuck is going on?
This was announced. It was like 4 a.m. Over the weekend because it was announced in Japan, and so I wake up at like 7 a.m. and I see this on Twitter. And at first, I thought it was a joke. Like I saw from like Nibel or someone who does a lot of announcements on Twitter, and they're like Kingdom Hearts 4 announced. I'm like, okay, sure. And I click on it, and it's a 7-minute video. And the first like 3 minutes, what I don't realize, because the entire video is in Japanese, what I don't realize is that the first like 3.5 minutes is not the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, but that's what I thought it was. And the first 3.5 minutes is about this like mobile game that looks like a 16-bit Final Fantasy game. And I'm like, it's 2 mobile games. And I'm like, wait, whoa. Kingdom Hearts 4 is going to be a 16-bit mobile game? Like, that's what I thought was happening at first. And so I was like, this is peak Kingdom Hearts. And then the video keeps going, and it actually looks like a PS5 type game. So it's like, oh, okay, I see now. But I was like, man, Kingdom Hearts, it is just like, they can't ever catch a break. There's also this whole other thing, which we won't dive into today. Maybe we'll do like a spin-off episode where we like go into all of these details. So Tetsuya Nomura, who again is the creator of Kingdom Hearts, this is back in like 2007 when Final Fantasy 13 was revealed. It was revealed simultaneously with a game called Final Fantasy Versus 13, which Nomura was in charge of. And like eventually that game over the years, like it eventually kind of turned into Final Fantasy 15, but like the actual idea of Final Fantasy Versus 13 died. But then apparently Final Fantasy Versus 13 was like kind of spun into Kingdom Hearts 3. And like in the world of Toy Story, Kamen, and I'm not making this up, in the Toy Story world of Kingdom Hearts, apparently Rex has this like mobile game, which apparently is like Final Fantasy Versus 13, but it's like renamed. It's some other name within, but like it is actually Final Fantasy Versus 13. I'm like, this man is insane. Tetsuya Nomura needs to be like studied, because this man is insane. I love it.
Just him? No. All Kingdom Hearts fans,
sure,
you guys are all fucking insane. Okay, I'm gonna say it right here, right now. I'm gonna rile some feathers. You guys are all batshit. Okay?
What I can't wait for,
I don't understand anything.
3 months from now, when you've played all 3 of them, and you're like, Patrick, I can't believe I'm saying this. Kingdom Hearts, fucking great. I can't wait for that moment. It's gonna be amazing. And I know Nick Swalski's going to be pleased to hear you say those words.
You know, we say this, okay, with Elden Ring. Like, I'm like, I don't understand the story too much, but I can probably tell you like a skeleton of the story of Elden Ring. I've watched full hour-plus long videos trying to break down the story of Kingdom Hearts.
But you've never played it.
And no. Oh, wait. And you have the people who are like doing the videos, and they're like, yeah, so, this is all really confusing, even if you've played the games. Like, no one really knows what's happening. Like,
I just can't wait. But okay, so that aside, putting a pin in that, even though I could watch you make that face for 15 years.
That's my orgasm face.
Oh, I know it is. I've seen it live and in the flesh. So with this, so I kind of teased at the beginning. Like I said, last September, there was this leak. I want to read. So I'm actually going to pull from an article from PC Gamer from Wes Finland at PC Gamer. Okay. This article is actually from November of 2021, but it kind of brings in a lot of kind of layers here. And then we'll kind of layer in our own editorialization of this, but this, I think, sets the stage for this conversation. So again, Wes Finland, PC Gamer. Wes goes on to say, in early September, a web developer tinkering around with NVIDIA GeForce Now's client discovered a way to access a list of all the games in GFN's database, some 18,000. Among the database entries, he found games that hadn't been announced for GeForce Now streaming support, and what seems to be a goldmine of games that hadn't even been announced, period. After the list began to spread, NVIDIA told WCCF Tech that it contained, quote, both released and or speculative titles used only for internal tracking and testing, end quote, and that, quote, inclusion on the list is neither confirmation nor an announcement of any game, end quote. However, since September, again, in November of last year, since September, it has started to look more and more like those, quote, speculative titles are real games. It all started with ActRaiser Renaissance, a surprise remake announced and released on September 23rd, only like a few days after this leak happened. More confirmations followed after that. Destroy All Humans 2's remake was announced at a THQ Nordic event only a few days after the original leak, and so was Outcast 2. There's also a bunch of stuff about like code names on projects. There were a bunch of Ubisoft. This is Patrick editorializing. There were a bunch of Ubisoft code names. There was also, Wes mentions here, Project Holland, which was a Fable game, which I don't think had been announced at the time. But the most recent Assassin's Creed spinoff, the Ragnarok spinoff, was codenamed something, and that code name was in here. There was also like a Ghost Recon code name that's since been announced. There's like all these code names that Ubisoft, because at the time Ubisoft also tried to get this shut down, but and which kind of like people at the time are thinking, if Ubisoft is trying to shut this down, maybe there is some truth here. But anyway, back to Wes. Randy Pitchford publicly stated that Gearbox was working on a new Brothers in Arms video game. Square Enix announced Dungeon Encounters, which was listed as a, quote, unannounced dungeon tactics game. Rockstar then went on to announce the Grand Theft Auto Remastered trilogy. Sony announced the God of War was coming to PC, and all of those were on this NVIDIA list, which in September, people were like, there's no way half of these things are true, and so many of them came to be true. So continuing with Wes, with so many examples, there's no way that the unannounced games on this list were all speculative, and it's looking like more games will continue to be confirmed. The Helldivers Twitter account is teasing some sort of announcement, and Helldivers 2, sure enough, was on the NVIDIA list. So he goes on to put together a list of games. I've pared it down to only like 15 or so, but he had put together like all of these kind of different games at the time that hadn't been announced that were on this list. Things like Chrono Cross Remaster, which has since been announced and released. Kingdom Hearts 4, which jokingly in this article in November, he was like, we're probably not going to see this for a decade or two. And then this came in April. This is April. So again, on the list has now since been announced. Street Fighter 6 was on this list, has since been announced. Resident Evil 4 remake on this list, long rumored. No announcements have happened, but that's like a la Resident Evil 2, so completely built from the ground up remake. That's kind of been rumored for a while. But some other really notable ones on here: Half-Life 2 remastered, Final Fantasy 9 remake, which I would assume would be like a full-on like Final Fantasy 7 remake, I would guess. Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, Tactics Ogre remaster. They claimed that a new BioShock game was coming this year, which I think at this point is unlikely, but still, because there was that time last year, I think it was
right before the Game Awards. Colin Moriarty, former Kind of Funny, now runs Sacred Symbols. He went on record and was like, "We will be seeing a BioShock 4 at the Game Awards."
Yeah, which didn't happen, but
which didn't. However, there was like a shit ton of people from behind the scenes being like, "Yeah, so we had to pull it, and so it does exist, and a lot of the details are probably correct."
Yeah,
so that's probably not coming in 2022. I mean, shit, who knows? We could get an announcement tomorrow. Yeah, we could get an announcement tomorrow to be releasing in fall. That wouldn't be shocking at all.
Yeah.
But here's some interesting ones to me. Injustice 3.
Yeah.
Gods Will Fall.
Big one.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, cool. Obviously, Mortal Kombat 12. That's
like Mortal Kombat will be made for the rest of time.
I really hope they are correct about the Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yeah,
I thought Dragon's Dogma didn't get enough love, and that's why we never got another one. I would love to see that. And obviously, Resident Evil 4 remake from the ground up. We've been talking about this for years. Is it coming? 1,000%. It's 100% coming. When will it come? I don't know. Capcom could literally probably just come out and be like, "Hey, Resident Evil 4 comes out in 2 weeks. Get your pre-orders now," and it would be like one of the top selling games of this decade.
My gut tells me next year, because we just had the remake in Oculus VR specifically come out like 3 months ago, and I feel like it would be weird to release 2 Resident Evil 4 games on a different medium within a year. I don't know though. I mean, maybe not, because I know I would go buy this remake. So like there is an audience of people that would buy it, and I'm sure.
Yeah, I definitely think, I understand. I see where you're coming from. I think if we don't see it this year, the reason we don't is because unlike 2 and 3, like sure, there's some love for 2 and 3 from the original fans, but Resident Evil 4 is like on a pedestal of action
right.
horror games. And
sure.
if they're going to do it, they need to make sure that it comes out polished, beautiful, uncompromised, no rushing, no anything. Like this has to be perfect when it gets launched, because people are expecting it to be perfect when it gets launched. And I think this is the biggest thing for me, just speaking on Resident Evil 4. Does it hold up? Will it hold up completely remade? Will it
Completely remade. We'll see. I mean, I replayed Resident Evil 4 maybe 6 months ago on Switch, and it held up for me, the original. So I mean,
did
some
it
of the
hold
controls,
up under like? Did it hold up under like the sense of like, oh, nostalgia? Like I have a feeling if I went and played Resident Evil 4 again, I'd be like, I still love this game. Like this game is just so much fun. It's I beat it so many times that But then if you get it and it's like in these beautifully rendered world now with like better controls and everything feels better, and it's like, because let's be honest, the first half of Resident Evil 4 is very different from the last half of Resident Evil 4.
Very different. You're right.
So I have a feeling the first half will be incredible and everyone will love it. But I'm worried that the second half with these new graphics and new gameplay updates might be very divisive. Unless they try to make it more horror like the first half of the game. Because the second half of the game, your weapons are all slowly but surely way better. You've got way higher arsenal of guns, and it's more action focused. So that would be interesting to see if people are like, that they still like that.
If they treat it like they treated the Resident Evil 2 remake, I can go ahead and tell you that just like the way that game feels if it was in Resident Evil 4 already would be such a huge improvement, because Resident Evil 2, one of my favorite games, like the remake, one of my favorite games of all time. Like I adored that game. But worth noting with that, they reworked a fair amount of that game. Like it is not a beat for beat remake of Resident Evil 2. So I would, to your point, I would be willing to bet that they would kind of cut some fat of Resident Evil 4, maybe rework some stuff. I would not be surprised if that were the case. But yeah, I don't know. I think it can still hold up, because it's honestly like, in a way, it almost feels like if you split that game in two, the first half feels much more like Resident Evil 2, and the second half feels much more like Resident Evil 3. Like it being just very kind of bombastic, action-y, like story kind of loses its way, but it's still fun. And like Resident Evil 3 remake was fun. It wasn't as good as Resident Evil 2 remake. But so yeah, I think it can work for sure.
Do you think one of our old listeners, and they might still be listening, Jade, think they ever played Resident Evil 3?
Sure. Wow.
We haven't talked about them in a hot minute.
I would like to think that Jade was finally able to play Resident Evil 3 and then
really hope they
completely left the internet.
They played it
because they got what they needed.
Yeah,
they got what they needed. They played Resident Evil 3 and they're gone now. They don't need anything from the internet anymore.
That's what'll happen when I play Bulletstorm 2. Once I play Bulletstorm 2, I'm gonna just keep saying Bulletstorm 2 because I'm like willing it into existence.
It's a shame that Bulletstorm 2 wasn't on the NVIDIA leak.
I know. I'm gonna add it. Hold on, wait a second. I'll just add it to the doc.
Perfect. A couple just two other notable ones that I want to mention. Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 HD. This is another one. Like they've been rumored for a while. Well,
Konami's so weird.
MGS 2 and 3 have been rumored in various ways for a while. Like there was the Blue Point complete remake. This is just HD. So like, is this just porting the HD versions that were brought to like Vita and PS4? Like, is that, or bringing those over? Like, because a lot of those, like MGS 1, 2, and 3, you can't really play on PS5. Like, there's not an easy way to do it unless you do like PS Now or like, so that I hope that comes true, because I would love for like an excuse to go and replay those in like a rebuilt way. But so yeah, interesting stuff. 3 months ago, a lot of this seemed like hogwash.
Yeah.
But now, especially Kingdom Hearts 4 is the one where like now everyone's like, okay, I think most of these things will probably happen, because like there's probably stuff on this list, and not even on this list, that's just in the other 18,000 games that had every intention of becoming true, but game development is what it is, and things get canceled and reworked and removed and things like that. So it is definitely possible that if all of these are accurate, that between now and whenever they would have come out, it's likely that a fair amount of these just get canceled and we never hear about them. It's a very common thing.
No, that's very fair. I mean, I think one of the other ones that people would be like, won't happen is the Half-Life 2 remake.
Sure.
Honestly, I don't see why that wouldn't happen. I don't foresee them making Half-Life 3, maybe ever. But remaking Half-Life 2, like, yeah, I don't think that you can really go wrong with that.
Here's what I'll say. If Half-Life 2 remastered happens, Half-Life 3 is happening, in my opinion.
That's a good point, actually.
Because there are ways to play Half-Life 2. There aren't really any ways to play Half-Life 1. Honestly, I would like for them to remaster Half-Life 1 because I've never played Half-Life 1. I've only ever played 2 via the orange box on Xbox 360. But I feel like, what's the point of remastering and redoing Half-Life if it's not to continue the story and like build up the fan base again? Like, I don't know, maybe that's reductive. Maybe people would also like to just replay those even if 3 never happens. But Valve has already said like they're starting to kind of make games again. So like, yeah, I think it is this. Yeah, that's Half-Life 2 remastered. I think almost certainly will happen, which will then lead to Half-Life 3 eventually. Put it on the board. That's my bet.
What do you think the odds are that Valve makes a little known game called Bulletstorm 2?
You know, Kamen, there's this really famous leak that happened last September, and Bulletstorm was the front running game on that leak.
Was it a gas leak?
It was a gas leak in your apartment.
God, no wonder everything's been so weird lately.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'll be the first to say that I hope Bulletstorm 2 happens, if for no other reason than to make you happy.
You know what I should replay now that I beat Elden Ring?
Bulletstorm?
I think it's time to play Bulletstorm again.
Here we go.
Fuck yeah. You know what? Actually, we're just going to ditch when we do the torture games. I'll do Kingdom Hearts. You are going to fully play Bulletstorm.
Look,
the Duke Nukem edition, because that one's just really fucking stupid.
I bought 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim Job.
You do have to play it.
So I'm playing that.
I can't wait for you to play it. And you'd be like, this game is actually pretty fucking incredible.
I can't.
It sounds like a game that you probably would really enjoy.
I hope
I'm not kidding.
Honestly.
Yeah.
No, it actually like the reviews for it are actually very positive. So.
Yeah, no, there's like crazy high reviews. Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Exciting stuff. But yeah, whenever we get to that, we'll do a special episode that's just us reviewing the bullshit games that we have to play.
Love it. Love it.
Fantastic.
Well, folks, that's our show.
That's our show.
That's our show. Thanks for coming along on the ride, Kamen. I'm so thankful and relieved to see that you are back among the living.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's exciting stuff to be dead or to be thought dead, and then it's exciting stuff to having to start, pulling together an arsenal of weapons to hunt down Evan Brando.
Yeah, he's his days are
numbered. Yeah,
his days are numbered. Well, folks. How's that for a pregnant pause?
Oh, I love it. You gotta love it when you do
some people were like, oh, what happened there? You can follow Kamen on Twitter at KidKamen. You can follow me on Twitter at Patrick Schwag. You can follow the pod on Twitter at SpotGamesPod or on Instagram at Spotlight Games Podcast. Rate it, review it, all that shit. YouTube, ring it, subscribe it, tell your friends about it. Beep bop, boop bop. We'll see you next week.
Bring it back.
Bring it back, baby.